Hello friends, welcome to Tales from the Nebula. If you enjoy the original stories told here, like and subscribe. The spores of Emberroot. Beneath the titanic boughs of the Emberroot Tree, its bark red as rust and branches thick as castle walls, nestled the mushroom village of Mycoria. Shaped from towering toadstools and velvet-capped fungi, Mycoria was a mosaic of glowing spores, winding root bridges, and lantern-lit walkways, inhabited by the sprites of the Sporekin, tiny beings no bigger than a moth, with wings like dandelion seeds, and laughter like wind chimes. Among them lived a sprite named Thim Thibideau. He resided far from the village heart, where the roots turned gnarly and the ground thickened with moss. His home, a crooked blackcap mushroom leaning against a twisted root, was solitary, silent, much like Thim himself. He spoke rarely, for his voice carried the tremble of old pain. The others whispered that he'd once flown with the village scouts, the brave Sporekin who ventured out beyond the outer glades to chart new growth and warn of encroaching rot. Few returned from such missions unchanged. Thim had once been among the boldest. In his youth, he soared through the redwood canopy with glee, a blur of silver wings and sharp eyes. He had mapped the edge of the whispering hollow, where trees grew upside down and the fog sang lullabies. But it was in the Blightfen that everything changed. A scouting mission turned sour, his unit ambushed by strange, shuffling creatures, ants, yes, but hollow-eyed and controlled by something fungal and cruel. Thim watched his comrades fall, consumed not by claw or tooth, but by parasitic growth. Only he escaped, though not unmarked. A spore had lodged in his chest. He carved it out with a blade of icecap fern, but the scar remained, a pulsing knot beneath his skin. He never flew again. In the seasons that followed, Thim retreated into seclusion. Many in the village pitied him, but not all. Flickerflit, the sharp-tongued council member and leader of the Puffball Legion, treated Thim with scorn. "The scout who ran," she would say behind cupped hands, loud enough for Thim to hear. "He left his wings and his courage somewhere in the Blightfen." Her words stung more than any wound, and in time even Thim began to believe them. When he passed near the council chambers, she would lift her chin and turn her back, her puffball guards mimicking her disdain. It was no surprise to Thim that she was the one who argued hardest against trusting him when the darkness returned. Then came the night the spores turned black. It started with a hum, a low, bone-deep vibration that rose through the roots. Then the ground split. From the darkness poured creatures neither wholly dead nor alive. Zombie ants taken over by Cordyceps fungus, their chitin covered in writhing mold, their eyes glazed with parasitic bloom. They moved with mindless hunger, devouring everything that breathed. The Cordyceps had always been known to the Sporekin. A part of the balance, it was thought, a fungus that controlled the minds of insects to spread its spores. But this was different. This strain pulsed with malevolence, a sickly green glow at its heart. It did not seek balance. It sought domination. The infection spread not just from ant to ant, but through the very network of mycelium beneath the forest floor. Like veins pumping poison, the corrupted mycelium spread through the root paths, blackening the soil, sickening the trees, even darkening the luminous mushrooms that lit Mycoria. Whole colonies of beetlekin fell silent. Glowcap fields dimmed to grey. The Sporekin Council met in haste. The Council of Rings was composed of 5 elder sprites, each chosen to represent one of the village's core fungi. Elder Morelia, wise and stern, from the brown-capped sages of the Morel Ring. Glowkeeper Varn, head of the bioluminescent guilds, with robes shimmering like starlight. Flickerflit, the swift and sharp-tongued defender of the Puffball Legion. Sister Siliqua, gentle healer and master of the honeycap circles. And Arch-Spore Tellen, the oldest among them, whose wings had long since withered, but whose knowledge stretched back centuries. They argued deep into the luminous hours beneath the village's central cap dome, lit by the pulse of breath moss. Some wished to flee and scatter, believing the Emberroot no longer safe. Others cried for war, but none had a plan. The village defenders stood little chance. The Cordyceps-driven ants advanced with unnatural coordination, immune to fear or fatigue. Their fungal masters used them like claws of a single mind. Homes were crushed beneath mandibles, bridges snapped, spore lanterns dimmed, and Thim watched, alone from his hill of Shadowcap. He could have stayed safe, watching from afar. He nearly did. But then he saw a young sprite, wings torn, clutching a broken lantern, dragged by a mandible toward a chomping jaw. The sprite's cry was the same pitch as one he'd once heard in the Blightfen, a comrade who never came home. Something old sparked in Thim's chest. He moved like lightning through the mushroom paths, slicing stalks, calling spores, weaving traps of spider root and luminous silk. He leapt atop a glowing bracket fungus, his voice booming like thunder through the village square. "We are the Sporekin of Emberroot. This is our ground. These invaders are but hollow husks. We are the life beneath the roots." The council blinked. Children gasped. The old scout warrior had returned. With Thim at the lead, the Sporekin rallied. He taught them how to listen to the forest, to follow the signals in the glowing spores. They lured the ants into mycelium pits, lined with acid moss. Thim crafted spore bombs from the shriek caps, explosive fungi that burst into blinding clouds. Glowkeeper Varn refocused the village's light reservoirs to blind the attackers. Puffball Legion scouts struck from the shadows, while honeycap healers tended the wounded with salves distilled from dawn dew. The battle lasted through the long night and into the dawn. Thim led strike teams into the roots below the village, severing the corrupted mycelium tendrils before they could spread further. He spoke to the forest itself, calling forth ancestral spores hidden deep in forgotten knots of root and bark, luminescent guardians that glowed with blue fire and danced through the air like will-o'-the-wisps. These ancient spores helped hold the final line. The village lit up in pulses of phosphorescent green, blue and pink as the battle raged. It was not clean. It was not easy. But by the time the second dawn broke, the ants were gone, crushed, burned, or dissolved by the forest's wrath. The mushroom village of Mycoria stood bruised but alive. Thim, though weary, remained in the village square as the first rays pierced the canopy. A young sprite tugged at his cloak. "Will you stay?" Thim looked to the embers of his old home, now glowing anew with healing light. He nodded slowly. "For now," he said, voice like the rustle of leaves. As villagers gathered around him, cheering softly, even those who had once doubted him felt the shift in the air. Flickerflit stood apart at first, arms crossed, face unreadable. But as her legion saluted Thim with respect and admiration, something in her hardened stance cracked. She stepped forward, her wings twitching. "You shamed me once," she said quietly. "Not for drama, but truth. And I repaid it with bitterness. I was wrong. You didn't run from the Blightfen. You survived it. And you saved us all." Thim nodded once, solemnly. Flickerflit extended a hand. "If you'll have it, the Puffball Legion stands ready under your command." He looked at her hand, then clasped it firmly. For the first time in many seasons, his eyes gleamed with the shimmer of belonging. Over the weeks that followed, the village rebuilt. Root bridges were restrung, spore lanterns rekindled, and new defences seeded under Thim's guidance. The council met with renewed purpose, now including Thim as an unofficial sixth voice. Stories of the Battle of the Black Spore spread throughout the forest, drawing emissaries from distant sprite circles. One evening, as a chorus of glowflies danced above the village, Flickerflit found Thim atop the canopy lookout. "The forest still sings of you," she said, settling beside him. Thim smiled faintly. "Let it sing of all of us. I was never the root, just a thread among many." They sat in silence, watching the Emberroot Tree sway in the breeze, its bark catching the last gold of sunset. Below them, Mycoria pulsed with light. And so, the loner of the shadow cap became the guardian of Mycoria, not with fanfare or command, but through quiet strength. In every root and spore his legacy grew, and beneath the redwood giant, life endured.